The Oscars feel like ancient history now, don't they?
It's so incredibly irrelevant at the
And you know
moment.
what's weird is that the Oscars used to be the end of March.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It was late March. We'd have a whole. We wouldn't even get the nominations until mid-February.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't be until the end of March. Now everything is so accelerated.
Yeah. There's so much more of everything. And it all happens sooner and faster and with more intensity.
Something has to give at a
And then
certain
it's
point.
over.
I always point out to people, E.T. in the early 1980s made $400 million domestically, which today is still an astronomical amount. Nothing. It's so rare that things make $400 million, and it did it over the course of 12 months. It did it without making in more than $12 million in any given weekend. $12 million doesn't even get you in the top 10 anymore.
Yeah, yeah. But of course, back then, and even further back, a film could live in theaters for years. A film could certainly live in theaters for months. And of course, the windows were all different. One of the reasons that could happen is because there was no VHS or DVD window to try to make. And there would be an audience for that film.
Yeah.
6 months later, because they would know that when that film finally left theaters, very likely you wouldn't be able to see it again for years.
And this is continuing our nostalgia reminiscing from last week, but Howard's End is recent, which was, what was that, about 1990, I guess, about 1990. Howard's End was platformed for over a year.
Yeah.
And that thing loitered around for the better part of the year of its release, just making a little bit here and a little bit in this art house. And then it got 8 or 9 Oscar nominations, whatever it was, a whole boatload of them, including Best Picture. And then suddenly it made more in 3 weeks than it made in the preceding 8 months.
That was when the whole notion of the Oscar bump, that Academy Award bump, that sort of thing.
And there are a few films that got that kind of bump, like Howard's End did. It really got. I don't know if
that bump still exists anymore. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't. You know why? It doesn't because of DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
That's why. Because there are. I mean, that was still the era of VHS.
Yeah.
And VHS wasn't structured. It wasn't built into the timetable the way the DVD is. Because it was still sell through and rental, and there were a lot of rental stores, and things could still platform. Everything now is on a very strict timetable. Nobody actually wants a movie to perform in theaters for 10 months.
No, yeah.
They don't, because
you'll be cheating yourself out of ancillary income.
Yeah, there's another movie waiting behind us that we got to move into those screens. So whether you like it or not, you're moving on to streaming and DVD and digital, and these things are. And we've already recorded the commentary, and we've already recorded we've already cut all the featurettes. And the next step, the next 3 steps in your ancillary life, that's already scheduled. That's already built in. So you're going to be in theaters for 3 or 4 months, and that's it. And if people are still running around the block, if they're packing theaters to be able to see it, well, then they'll just have to enjoy it in its next life, because we're pulling it from those theaters anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
It's built in.
Well, man, oh man, it's a whole different game, baby.
Whole different game. Well, anyway, otherwise we are now slowly creeping into to summertime, so we got a lot to talk about. I'm going to make mention right up at the top, because we got Easter coming. Easter's on April Fool's this year. That doesn't often happen. So a couple of things they're sort of loosely tied to Easter. We don't have anything that is straight up Easter themed. No Easter bunny and egg collecting and whatnot. And of course Passover coincides with Easter as well, for all the obvious religious reasons. So whichever your religious holiday, got a couple of things here. One from the Smithsonian Channel. It is Bible hunters, bold explorers who risked it all to reveal the earliest Bible texts. I was a history major before I was a film major, and took a lot of really great classes and kind of had a focus on ancient religious history as well, which I just, the classical world fascinates me, and Mesopotamia and all that stuff. I love all that stuff. And that's why I troll museums as often as I can. Anyway, this is a really, really interesting doc, and it's fascinating. Jeff Rose, who is a historian and archaeologist, is your host on this. and it's really really interesting because it goes into an aspect of archaeology and anthropology and literary history, frankly, which is really interesting, which is getting to the root of all the documents that constitute the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. When did they originate? What were they based on? What are the sources of all these documents? And
Mm.
that's something that, when you take history in high school,
Yeah.
you're reading it out of books. When you take history in college, you're reading original sources.
Yes.
And then and that's the most interesting aspect of history, which is you have to question, what is the authenticity of the source? What is the authority of the source? Can I confirm the source? Are there other sources that either agree or that disagree, that contradict? And if they contradict, what do you get into all of these really, really interesting methods. And I still love that
Well,
stuff.
the historicity of all of these things is often quite fascinating.
It's so fascinating. So I highly recommend this. This gets into a lot of that stuff and does so in layman's terms, and it's really, really, really interesting. And for those who want their Easter with a bit more straight up religious orthodoxy, there's a really interesting set here from Lionsgate. The people who've been doing these word for word gospel translations. They've made all 4 films now: Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Mark, Gospel of Luke, Gospel of John, all with the same actor. And you can get all 4 of them now in the Gospel collection. What's interesting to me, there was a Canadian film some years ago, about a year and a half before Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, called Gospel of John, which was also a word-for-word adaptation of the Gospel of John, which was a really, really interesting movie. Had a lot of, had a great score and some really interesting stuff to it. I actually prefer that one to this one, but there is no equivalent to the other 3. So, this is an interesting collection. These movies tend to be very, very long because they are quite literally word for word gospel transitions to movies. So, Gospel of Matthew is well over 3 hours, and the Gospel of John is not far from it. Gospel of Luke, strangely, is really, really, really long. It's like almost 4 hours. So in any case, yeah. But anyway, it's a nice thing to have on hand for people who are who want to have a dramatic recreation of religious material. So the Gospel Collection from Lionsgate and Bible Hunters from the Smithsonian Channel. So whatever your religious holiday, that's something to think about to give things a little kick there in late March, early April.
Late March, early April.
So, Tim, where should we television or new movies? Which should we jump into? Next?
Let's jump on some new movies because
Okay.
a few lingering from Oscar
Yes.
season there. Downsizing, I see you got over there, which I think was a film that Alexander and Matt and some of those folks thought we might have been talking about.
Yeah, well,
during the season. Didn't happen.
Alexander Payne is 2-time Academy Award winner. I'm sure I've mentioned in this show many, many times. Alexander Payne was a student at UCLA in the grad program when I was there undergrad. I remember very well. He was a very popular TA in the production, and he was kind of a star in the program at the time. There were a few people there who were sort of on par. Gina Prince, Gina Bythewood Prince, who's done Love and Basketball and some other fine films, was also in the program.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug Prey, who's done a number of documentaries we talked about a couple of weeks ago, who's a very respected documentarian. So we had some fun people in the program. Me, whatever. But anyway,
So funny.
Downsizing is Alexander Payne's first misfire. And he almost it seemed like he was the golden boy who could do no wrong.
Well, I had issues with The Descendants. We all know about those issues, but
this is straight up tanked.
But this failed, and it was a big movie. It
was his biggest. It's his biggest budget he's ever had. Special effects and everything.
A high concept movie about a period in the near future when human beings are able to reduce themselves through some process discovered in Sweden. 'Cause, that's what they do. to, or able to actually physically reduce themselves in size. The idea here being that if you are smaller, it takes less to live, and whatever it is that you have as a big person will go much further when you are a small person. Dollhouse,
stretching a dollar.
Stretching a dollar, like literally. And the notion being that the sort of problems and issues that exist in the larger world, pun intended, you carry with you when you get smaller.
Yeah.
And they just sort of duplicate themselves. Okay, there's an interesting sort of idea inside that. And then this movie goes hard sideways. Hard sideways. Into for all kinds of reasons. But nevertheless, here it is, 4K Ultra HD. All kinds of stuff on here, special features for you to check out. It's an interesting film in terms of its conception and its execution visually. And it's also interesting in terms of the many ways in which it fails.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a film that I can really recommend, but it is an interesting failure because Alexander is not a slouch. I mean, what he puts into this is a level of great professionalism, but it's true. Once Matt Damon gets shrunk down, there's really not much left for the film to do, and then it becomes it goes into this very strange class the class issues, and once you're shrunk down, the class issues don't go away; they just change. And I guess the idea being you can't run away from your troubles; the troubles will always follow you. Well, there are maybe
a lot of ways to get there, baby.
So here's what's interesting: what they attached to the cover of this was this little tiny Manila folder.
Yeah.
With a literal little shrunk down mailing label, which is exactly the mailing label with which it was mailed to me. You see that?
Oh, yes, it's your,
Yeah, see, it says there, WadeMajor, DigiGods.com. So it is exactly the mailing label. They made a little version of it. Yeah. I have not opened to see what is in this. Yeah, so let's see what was so important.
Little manila envelopes.
A little tiny manila envelope, and what they sent. Let's see. What they sent was
a little tiny version.
It's a little mini version of the 4K
of the 4K DVD box. Literally the same thing.
Literally the same thing. And then
a little bit bigger than the postage stamp.
And then they actually took the press release and they shrunk the press release down to an unreadable couple of pieces of paper.
Isn't that clever?
I don't. In other words, this is really just useless. This is supposed to. This is a joke.
It's that kind of thinking. It's that kind of thinking that put that movie in the tank. Right there. Yeah. Probably should get ideas for your movies from some place.
Gosh, heavens to Betsy.
Downsizing. What else we got?
So let's see. We have got a few things. It's not a huge week, but we got a few things.
Based on a true story. Based on a story. Sorry, not a true story. That would be Children of the Corn. It would be amazing if Children of the Corn were based on a true story.
That'd be great.
That would be so much better in every possible way. Stephen King, based on the Stephen King adaptation, Children of the Corn, Runaway. Excuse me. Adaptation or reconceiving and extending and reconfiguring of the classic Stephen King sort of thing. I remember loving all those sort of adaptations from back in the day. This is whatever. It tells the story of a young pregnant woman, one of those kind of things. Special feature, a deleted scene.
Yeah,
a deleted scene. That's what you get.
I'm sorry if they're still milking Children of the Corn after all these years. That's does that even have any currency still with any kind of an audience?
You know what? It might have something to do with the fact that it was such a popular.
Film.
I think it might have more to do with that than anything
just to be able to slap the King name on it. Sure, of course, because if you're the company that still has the rights to Children of the Corn, and you can put something else out and take advantage of King's name, you're making a new Children of the Corn movie.
Exactly. All you have to spend money on is a nice box.
That's it. Small Town Crime. Kind of surprised that this didn't kind of stick around a little bit. This is actually a really smart indie with a great cast. Stars John Hawkes and everybody else in this thing. Robert Forston and Octavia Spencer and Clifton Collins Jr.
I saw that for the show.
Anthony Anderson. I mean, it's really good. Small Town Crime. It's a good little film. And John Hawkes is really, really sharp. And this just kind of didn't go anywhere. Why do you think this didn't really?
I saw that movie for the show. Talked it up real nice. It's just the shape of things today. I don't know. It's just that's the way it works sometimes. Just the shape of things. But that's a neat little movie.
It's a neat little movie.
Quite a lot.
John Hawkes is an ex-cop, kind of a dirty ex-cop, Dirty Harry style guy. You know, you stick around long enough, you go south, and he drinks too much, and and then it goes from there into a kind of a redemption trajectory.
Yeah, he's got the thing of it is the thing that I liked about that movie. Octavia Spencer in that movie is playing his sister.
Yeah.
His actual sister.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why she's his
Yeah.
sister. They were raised together. And,
Yeah.
and the reason it makes sense. And thus she's married to Anthony Anderson. Thus he is playing his brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And in that dynamic, because she loves her brother, who is this screw up that you just described. Yeah. And it's just a neat thing to see this middle-aged black lady talking crap to John Hawkes, who is really just her little brother, and she's talking smack to him the way she talks smack to her.
Absolutely.
Because he's her little brother in the show.
Yeah.
And it's just a neat thing that I liked a lot about that movie.
No, I like it too. And it's got deleted scenes and extended scenes and featurettes and 3 commentaries, which are all really fun. Director's commentary, of course, is the most interesting of all of them. But yeah, I give it a shot. It's worth a little movie worth checking out. Small Town Crime.
And what are we going to do now? Let's see here. Kevin Dillon. It's funny. Years and years and years ago, Kevin Dillon was in a remake of The Blob.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do.
This is like in the middle 80s or something. And for about a week, he was actually a higher profile actor than his brother.
Yeah, for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he was in that remake of The Blob. Anyway, this is one of those car movies, one of those off-road sort of car movies. And it's kind of neat, a little bit of fun. In this thing, you get inside the cars, the trucks, there's a competition, who will win, all that kind of stuff. Whatever, it's neat. There is a bonus feature, an off-road gag reel, in which these guys are driving around doing all kinds of wacky stuff. Anyway, it's a neat little movie. Dirt is the name of the movie. Dirt.
And then we have Pitch Perfect 3. I loved Pitch Perfect. I mean, Pitch Perfect came out. It was a breath of fresh air. Yeah. It was about a subject nobody had ever dealt with before, the a cappella group competitions. That movie was so perfect in the comedy, the casting, all the supporting parts. Everything about it was just absolutely beautiful. And then they came out with Pitch Perfect 2, which, frankly, was not terrible, but it wasn't very good.
Not nearly as good.
Not nearly as good. And they switched up the cast a little bit. They
got rid of a few people.
Yeah.
Focused it more on the girls. The first one was that straight up boy-girl thing.
Yes.
And the middle one was...
And then it was it was a German group. They were going up against a German group in this one. And that's okay.
It's like a big international thing. And then this.
And then, in that one, Keegan-Michael Key was the saving grace of that thing. Yeah. Let's be honest.
That one was directed by Elizabeth. The first Banks. One was directed. Who directed the first one?
It was a stage director.
Stage director.
The first one.
Yeah, but
and then Elizabeth Banks, who produced it and who acts in it, of course, in a very, very funny bit. She directed the second one, and that was it's not her fault. It's milking too much of the same thing. And Keegan-Michael Key comes in and does some very, very funny bits as a music producer who just has no patience for stupid people, and it's a perfect thing for him. And they switched up the cast a little bit, and then Pitch Perfect 3. So Pitch Perfect 3,
which is what we've been working our way to, which I didn't hate in terms of the performances, but there is no movie there.
There is no movie here. You're basically sitting there just honestly.
Yeah.
Here's my recommendation. We have it here on Blu-ray and 4K Ultra HD. If you're going to get it on the 4K. It doesn't cost much more, and the sound is so much better.
Yeah.
Because all you really want out of this is audio. You want lossless, crazy audio, and it sounds beautiful. But here's the thing. Let's be honest. You're putting this in, and you're just going to fast forward from musical piece to musical piece. What happens between the songs, what happens between the a cappella performances, it will ruin you.
Yeah, it's sort of a faux Bondian story with all kinds of goofy crap going on, explosions, and Fat Amy running around with her dad. It's just all awful. It's just all awful.
Yeah, it's not good.
But the performances are kind of fun. It's a boy-girl thing again. The girls get back together for the last time to go on this sort of tour of USO shows.
USO tour, yeah.
USO tour. And so you have these groups. You have like a country group, and you got like a boy group. The performances are fun. And that opening performance
Mm.
which is, I mean, it
Yeah.
opens with a performance. And frankly, you listen to that, or you listen to it, watch
Yeah.
it, listen to it, whatever it is, you got the whole movie
But
and you're
it's just,
done.
it's not fun once they're out of college.
No.
It just isn't. It really isn't. I don't know. Well, anyway.
Right, one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Divine Order. I loved this film by Petrol Volpi. It was so neat, and there was an education in this movie for me. Switzerland, 1971. I did not know this, folks. As late as 1971,
Yep.
women did not have suffrage in Switzerland.
Correct.
And this movie comes out last year. I saw this movie for the radio show, and I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, "Am I getting this right?" I really had to stop the movie, go to Wikipedia, look it up
true.
to see if they had made this stuff up. No, this is true.
True.
Switzerland.
Yes.
And there was an entire campaign for it. There was a thing. It's quite fascinating. But there it is. This movie, Divine Order, is about that period, sort of filtered through the life of this a woman and her friends who work at this factory, and their campaign as they join the campaign for women's suffrage. It's really, really funny and quite a little education. And on the heels of the whole Me Too thing, learning that in Switzerland women did not get suffrage until 1971. Dude, that was a little wake up call for me.
I briefly lived in Switzerland.
Your sister-in-law?
No. This before I was in France.
Oh,
back in the mid '80s. Yeah, I was in Switzerland for a bit, and my mother actually lived in Switzerland after when she was first, after World War II, when she was first being a governess, doing the whole Sound of Music thing. Yeah, she was in Bern, I think it was. Anyway, I was in the French part of Switzerland. In Lausanne, and I can tell you, Switzerland is a very unusual country. It's a wonderful country, but it's an unusual country on a lot of levels, and especially a place like Lausanne, which is a college town. Like Lausanne is an amazing. I mean, if you think Geneva is an international city, which it is for all the obvious reasons, Lausanne is crazy international. You walk around Lausanne, you hear every language in the world. I mean, Lausanne is just a rainbow of internationality of people from all parts of the world who all go to Lausanne to study at various universities and study things. And you've got people there from Mozambique and from Peru and from Fiji and from Eastern Europe, and it's quite amazing. But here was the thing, and this is a tangent, but it is a requirement in Switzerland that every single male in the country, every male citizen of Switzerland, must own a gun, a military weapon, a military authorized weapon, because you are the de facto standing army of the country in case it ever gets invaded. Yeah. And that's a thing. And if you're male and you're Swiss, then you are a soldier who may be called up at any given time. Run, grab your rifle, and
which happened a few times over the study your Western European history.
Yeah,
every now and again, would get invaded by the Russians.
There's reason for it, and the political structure in Switzerland is fascinating. It's a confederation anciently, and the Helvetian Confederation, and it's a really interesting country. And then it gets very bizarre when you go to the countryside and you feel like you're trapped in some kind of a weird Truman Show kind of staging of a Swiss Miss commercial, and you go, that lawn could not be that groomed, and that lady who just came out to sing and have birds land on her shoulders and beat that rug to the tune of the song that is coming from somewhere. This is a weird country. Anyway, that's Switzerland. So let's see. Oh, and we got one more new movie here before we jump. I want to mention some cult stuff, because we've got some really cool cult movies. The Vanishing of Sydney Hall.
Oh, yeah. Elle Fanning and
Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
Nathan Lane and Elle Fanning in a movie together. Go figure. So anyway, this is a kind of a middling thriller, I guess, with a very, very decent cast. And here's my question with this. I mean, there's some very good people. Logan Lerman is a really good actor. Michelle Monaghan, I adore. I don't know why she isn't doing better stuff. Nathan Lane just kind of pops in for
Tim Blake Nelson's in it.
Yeah. But Elle Fanning is making. I'm rooting for her, but I'm beginning to wonder if she isn't
Well, don't forget she was in Beguiled.
She's
She
been
was in,
in Beguiled,
she's in,
which, by the way, Beguiled,
that was the movie I thought we would have been talking about.
that won Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival and vanished at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Now, I think the reason for that is because some people raised the question that Beguiled basically, unlike the book, and to some degree unlike the original Eastwood film, completely ignores the existence of slaves.
Yeah, which I loved about
Yeah.
Sophia's conception
Yeah.
Of that film.
A lot of people felt
A lot of
that
people
was-
hated it. A lot of black people hated it. A lot of black people they felt like it. No. I thought it was.
But-
I thought it was a brilliant choice on her part.
because to that world, slaves were invisible.
They were invisible. If you put slaves in that movie,
Yeah.
then what are those actors, those slaves,
Sure.
those black actors? What are they doing in that movie? I know what they're doing in that movie. They're getting beat down.
Yeah.
Belittled and everything else that you can think of
Yeah.
by these young white girls and whatever few soldiers.
Yeah.
That's all they're going to be doing in the movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see that. I didn't need to see that, particularly to tell this story, which had nothing to do with the slaves. Anyway, this is the way she put the slaves in the movie. By the way, she has a character say, when the Yankees came, the slaves all run off to fight with them. That was the way she put the slaves in the movie. The black folks in her conception of the movie decided to take up arms and fight for their own freedom, so we ain't got time to hang around this boarding school with these white girls no more.
Yeah.
Brilliant choice. I thought it was wonderful. This is another thing that she did that I think is brilliant in that movie. This is not the movie we're talking about, but I know it with Elle Fanning. In that movie, Colin Farrell, who plays the same character that Clint Eastwood played, she made him. He's from Ireland, but she left him from Ireland.
Yes.
Why? Because during that period,
That's right.
a great many rich people up north paid poor people to go fight their wars for them.
Yes, they did.
He got paid by a rich man to go fight in that war, which is what actually happened. And that's what's actually in that book, too. In the book, it worked that way, too.
Yeah.
So, no, this was a very politically astute movie on her part. With respect to both of those things, we're actually talking about this movie.
So that brings me to Elle Fanning. So here's the thing about Elle Fanning's choices. I find it interesting that you're certainly not going to turn down Sofia Coppola, but her role in that movie is a very austere. It's a very austere, sexually repressed, sexually immature young woman. Yeah. Okay. And then here she's playing the girlfriend of an author who vanishes, and then 10 years later there's an investigation, and it kind of gets into all the details of the disappearance and who or what is responsible, et cetera, et cetera. And she's also very austere and kind of icy in this. And I'm wondering if there's sort of a I don't know if it maybe a naif-like quality is the way to say it, that she's disappearing into, and I'm she played a transgender character in that one of the very last Weinstein films before the whole Harvey thing exploded. And I'm wondering, I get it. She's really trying to stretch as an actress, but it feels like she's stretching on the margins.
Well, she's leaning a little too heavily into a thing that is, her nature. She's ridiculously beautiful.
Yeah.
Obviously, when casting directors, particularly male directors, but female, they was using that Winding Refn film.
Yeah.
That was literally about her beauty.
Yeah.
Or the beautiful and how they can be eaten.
Yeah.
And look, I get that. She turned out to be somewhat more attractive physically than Dakota, although Dakota is still a more substantive actor. If you've been watching that Western thing that she does, what Elle is going to have to do is lean into her acting chops now, and not depend on that beauty, and then we will see whether or not she has staying power.
Absolutely true. All right, so got a bunch of culty things here. Got one here which is a documentary, and then the others are all just straight up cult movies. The documentary, I'm including it here. It's The Sunshine Makers because it's the history of LSD. And LSD has been the subject of so many cult films. Corman and everybody else, they've made movies about it. So the way this is done has a very culty quality to it. So if you are a fan of those movies, and if you want to see the subject treated semi-seriously, but at least with a twinkle and a little tongue in its cheek, this is the one to check out. The Sunshine Makers. This is from Film Rise. And then we also have, as long as we're on the subject of drugs, Red Crocodile director's cut. I didn't know there was another cut. I'd never even heard of this movie. This is also from MVD Visual, who released the other one for FilmRise. And this is Brock Madsen plays a guy who takes this drug called crocodile, and it then segues into this very bizarre kind of post-apocalyptic hallucinatory journey, which reminds me a little bit of a few things. Like what was the thing with oh gosh, I'm drawing a total blank on it. Oh, anyway, it'll occur to me. There's a whole subgenre of movies where you question whether or not you are actually in the real world or in the mind of the character, and they all deal with some degree of drug addiction.
Memento is one of them.
Memento is one of them.
Well, actually, what I was actually thinking of is Inception. Inception is right,
but Memento to some degree as well.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. The Verhoeven film with Arnold that they remade with Colin Farrell.
Domiziano Cristofaro directs the film fairly well. I mean, this is an Italian production all the way through, and it's on Blu-ray. It doesn't need to be on Blu-ray, but I guess they felt it did. From the Redemption line over at Kino comes The Orchard and Murder. The Orchard and Murder was made in 1981 in the UK, and it is it has something of a cult following. Otherwise, it wouldn't be part of the Redemption line. But the Redemption line, of course, also deals with films that have a certain aesthetic maturity, a certain quality. So this is one of those movies that feels a little bit like an exploitation film and a little bit like an art film all at the same time. It goes off the rails in a few places, but it is really quite interesting. The BFI, the British Film Institute, went ahead and restored this, and the most interesting thing on it is the 1970 documentary featurette short directed by the film's director, which called The Showman, which is really almost worth the purchase alone. Really, really, really interesting. And you get Christopher Marnham, the director, talks a little bit about The Showman. You also get a bunch of interviews. And, if you like kind of weird, dark, 70s styled British murder thrillers with a little bit of an exploitation salt on them, this is not bad. The Orchard and Murder. Much more grindhouse is The Blood Spattered Bride from Mondo Macabro. This is just straight up cheesy, wonderful gore, and Mondo Macabro specializes in this stuff. This was made in 1972 in Spain by Vicente Aranda. This is, Spain's version of the Italian genre known as giallo. Is even more cheesy. They take their cue from Italy, and then they go over the edge, and in many respects it's almost more like an artier version of a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie, but it's straight up gore, gothic horror. Really, really bizarre, far out stuff. A little bit of kind of there's almost a British gothic horror quality to it, of the Ken Russell variety. You get some interviews on here, audio commentary, some deleted scenes and alternate scenes. It's it's strictly if you like that kind of a Euro horror film. And then even going south even more. This is just totally off the hook. I don't even know if I would call this giallo film, even though it's an Italian production directed by Umberto Lenzi. It is called Eaten Alive. This is from Severin. Tim, I'd like for you to read the tagline on this.
Read the tagline.
Right at the top.
A relentless feast of human flesh.
That says it. That's all you need to know. There you go.
A relentless feast.
This thing was this was allegedly banned in 38 countries. Most movies are banned in 38 countries.
Yeah, at least.
I could come up with 38 countries that banned ET if you want. But anyway, this is there was for a moment in the 60s and 70s, there's a cannibal genre, and this comes kind of at the end of it. This is in 1980, many years after the cannibal genre really kind of ran its course, and for some reason they felt that they needed to come up with another one. And it's just it's really quite terrible, but if you like it, here's one. This is the last one. This is on DVD only. This is a load of fun. Codename Diablo. This is an absolute blast. This is, of course, an adults only thing, but this is basically if Russ Meyer had made one of those spy spoofs in the late 60s, early 70s. If Russ Meyer had gone and done something like Barbarella or frankly any of the films in that genre, Modesty Blaze, right? There's a whole ton of them. If Russ Meyer had gone in that direction, this is exactly what he would have made. It's there's just nothing else. There's no other way to describe this. It's very, very funny. It's very silly, and Tim, how would you describe the things that I'm trying to be circumspect about with the three actresses? Their attributes.
We would call them silicone-ish.
Silicone-ish, thank you. Exactly what I was looking for. So anyway,
in an 80s kind of way.
In a very 80s kind of way, more than 80s. They're not even remotely very good actresses, and you're probably not going to notice. But you know, they make for great, well-endowed spies. And I still, of course, prefer Emma Peel. Always will.
Yeah.
But, you know, if Emma Peel had undergone some kind of implant surgery and decided to just throw it all the wind, she would be starring with two of her friends in Codename Diablo. And, you know, it is a lot of fun. It actually is a lot of silly fun. They know they're not making a serious movie.
I've enjoyed that stuff back in the day. I enjoy it now. You know, all of it, from Barbarella to just all of it.
I am just so sorry, and I need to follow up on this. I'm so sorry that Russ Meyer's stuff is not on Blu-ray. They have done nothing with that library since they released them to DVD.
What's that about? Because is that about?
Well, Russ owned all of his own stuff.
Yeah.
He owned all of it all, every last bit of it. And, you know, it was, 16, 17 years ago.
Because I remember you guys wandering around that warehouse.
Well, Ray did.
Ray, yeah.
Yeah, we tried to talk Russ into being in Schlock. And I had a conversation with him. Ray had a conversation. You know, my conversation went off the rails a little bit because I told him, I said, you know, I'm sure I've told this on the show, so indulge me. I said, you know, Sam Arkoff already talked to us. We've interviewed Sam, and I thought that would leverage him, and that his pride would bite him, and he'd say, "Sam talked to you? Yeah. Well, all right, I'll talk to you because I'm not going to let Sam be in a movie that I'm not in." And he says to me, he goes, "Sam wanted me to make a movie for him once," and I said, "F you." And of course, he spelled it out much more bluntly, and that was it. And I thought, there's just no penetrating. And then I called Ray, and I was like, Ray, he's playing hardball. And then so Ray called him, and then had like about an hour-long conversation. And clearly, Russ was planning to make a documentary about himself, which he never did. Yeah. And then his sister took ill, and then he himself took ill, and his sister passed, and he eventually passed. And at one point, I was in touch with his assistant, and I just don't know where his films are right now. I don't know who inherited the rights, but they should be on Blu-ray. Yeah. They really should, and I should probably reach out and investigate that.
A little archival work needs to be done there.
You know what?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, no. Russ cared for his elements like a father caring for a child. They are pristine and probably don't need much more than a really cursory digital cleanup. But the elements are pristine.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Russ, fun. The HBO series Curb Your Enthusiasm, the complete ninth season. I remember I remember the actual stand-up special called Curb Your Enthusiasm that Larry David did in 1999. That was ultimately the catalyst to this actual series, which was always an interesting series. That sort of camera with him talking to the camera, all that kind of stuff like that. I enjoyed this series, but I didn't watch it for the entire run. Somewhere along
Yeah.
the line, I bailed for
Yeah.
no reason whatsoever. I was just like, I'm tired of watching this pissy guy run
Yeah.
around starting fights with people
Yeah.
for no reason whatsoever. But I always got it. It was a very, very sort of funny show in which a lot of really interesting people showed up, as do in this particular season. This one has bonus features, which includes memorable moments and deleted scenes. It's kind of a neat show. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
We also have the Lego Star Wars Empire, which is a strange thing. There's all of these weird overlapping circles, and there is the Lego animated world, which includes the Lego TV shows and the Lego movies and all that, and then that overlaps with the DC world,
The Batman,
Lego
Superman, Batman, Will Arnett and all that,
and it also overlaps with Star Wars, which is weird. Because
in a very sort of disjointed, odd way, in which none of the actual Star Wars characters, don't really show up that much.
And I'm still trying to sort of figure out how all the rights to these things crisscross, because Lego, is partly stepping on the DC world, and then Lego's also stepping on a Disney thing, and those are, I'm just surprised. Anyway, I'm not quite sure how it all fits together, but it's making money for Lego, and they were on that company almost went bankrupt once before they invented the Lego blocks.
Yeah,
it's fascinating history. So in any case, this is the Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures Complete Season 2, 12 episodes plus 5 shorts, and you even get a Darth Vader pin as part of this.
Because everybody needs their Darth Vader pin.
I guess I don't know why this is necessary. I don't know why people need to see an animated Lego version
of anything.
Of anything.
Yeah, I have an issue with these films. The first one, the Lego, the Lego movie.
Yeah,
saw that movie. I got it. Neat joke. But I had already experienced all of those wonderful Lego movies that people take painstakingly move Legos around.
Their own little home
motion,
Lego.
Yeah, stop motion animation, basically, including ones that were homages to Batman and all the other things. But they were actually physical Legos. Animated Legos doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't.
Animation is already animation. Animating a Lego, no.
Anyway, so the idea here is that, you're still dealing with the adventures of the Freemaker family, who are, of course, the subject of this animated thing, and they're fighting the Empire, and it's trying to approach that whole story in the original Star Wars from an alternate point of view. And perhaps even an alternate Star Wars universe, because it doesn't really
have anything to do.
It doesn't really coincide in any meaningful way with anything else, including the Clone Wars, which is a different Star Wars series with different animation. It's all
no Lego, no Legos.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Star Wars purists who feel obligated to actually have to watch all this stuff, because I don't really get the point. But anyway, there it is. If you really dig it.
Yeah, you can do your thing. Major Crimes, which is a spinoff, if I'm not mistaken, of The Closer. This is the 6th and final season of Major Crimes. I always loved Mary McDowell in this. A powerful show. I rather enjoyed Major Crimes. I don't get into a whole lot of the police dramas, but the performances in this show are actually quite good, as are the storylines. In this 6th and final series, a character from a previous series, sort of serial rapist is what he was, comes back into the show, and all kinds of things go down. A lot of politics in this show too, so like big city politics. Always reminiscent of a John Sayles film to me. City of Hope.
Love that movie.
Exactly.
Whatever happened to Vincent Spano?
Oh man. Well, actually, I would bump into Vincent out on the old red carpet circuit quite a while doing the charity thing. Still look great, Vincent, but yeah.
Good actor.
Yeah. Major Crimes includes blooper reel, never before seen deleted scenes.
So there was a thing that happened in the late 80s, early 90s, when all of these first-run syndication period action shows happened.
Yeah.
That was the era dominated by Hercules and Xena.
Yeah.
And there was a whole lot of other stuff that happened.
yeah.
There was a really
all that stuff on UPN network.
Oh
and,
yeah,
all those little,
there was a bad Robin Hood show that
Oh,
they
yeah.
shot in like Lithuania.
Yeah.
You know,
There was a
and
lot of that.
there's a lot of
lot
that.
of that.
You know, they shot him in New Zealand. They shot him in
A lot of
Lithuania.
that,
They
yeah.
shot him in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
They right all that stuff for $1.50. And this is one I don't even remember. Crossbow: The Legend of William Tell.
Oh, middle 80s.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
87.
And it's
Do you remember this?
oh yeah, it was
Wow.
because that's we were talking about Switzerland earlier.
Yeah.
And the William Tell stories, Switzerland.
Oh, yeah,
the
they-
whole thing of
they
the
love their-
king.
oh,
and,
yeah.
and the son, the thing, all that kind of
He's
stuff.
basically Robin Hood to Switzerland.
Exactly, and that series sort of tried to speak to the actual historical context out of which
Starring Will Lyman, who
yeah,
had
which is a guy,
who had a
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
It's basically very. I mean, he has a crossbow, but basically he's facing off against Governor Gessler, who's played by Jeremy Clyde here, trying to stop an uprising. Who's basically the sheriff of Nottingham. Let's face it, it's the same kind of dynamic. And I had no idea this even existed. This ran for 3 seasons, 72 episodes, and it's amazing who shows up on this show. I mean, the guest stars are amazing. Roger Daltrey shows up here.
Yeah.
Robert Guillaume pops in. Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, I love it.
Sarah Michelle
Yeah,
Gellar.
yeah,
This is crazy.
yeah.
It's mad. I had no idea this show even existed. It's
I
not
remember
bad.
that.
It's not bad.
I remember
as,
that.
As far
Yeah.
as these shows go, this is
Yeah.
not bad. You could do worse.
She's like a little girl in that show. The Good Fight, which is a spinoff of The Good Wife,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. Christine Baranski, Delroy Lindo, and a few others. Interesting sort of. And again, and the Good Wife might have been the one. The theme of The Good Wife being, of course, that she was married to this guy. He does some shady stuff. She has to pull out the old law degree in order to. So this one, Christine Baranski is running this investment firm. Somebody does something shady. It wipes her out. She's down to nothing, down to zero, and she has to again. Pull out the law degree, go back to work, and fight her way back from nothing. Look, I like these television programs about women operating at the highest levels of government and or corporate and or legal, this, that, or the other thing, making their way in these quote-unquote men's worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's interesting about all of these shows is that these are really women's worlds. And the men only think they're running them, and what we watch when we watch these. Same thing with The Good Wife. It's what we're watching the way women have to operate in these worlds in order to get the things that they want, which is really just fairness and justice. That's the thing that I like about these shows. If these shows were flipped around the other way around, men were always doing something dastardly.
Yes, always.
Yeah, that's not what's going on in these shows.
No.
Women are fighting in these shows for justice and fairness, but they're willing to do what it takes to get their justice. And I love that about these shows. The Good Fight, smart, strong. Neat show.
Speaking of strong women fighting there in a men's world, fighting to get on top and stay there, brings us to season 6 of Kendra on top.
Kendra on top. Kendra. You believe it or not, back when I was doing a lot of red carpets, I would end up over at the Playboy Mansion quite a lot. He's dead now, and they sold it and all kinds. But her F was still there. They'd have these things.
Yeah.
I used to talk to that chick 2-3 times a week.
Yeah,
Kendra.
she was
one of the. She was one of the 3. Was it 3? I think it was 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
3 blondes that he was quote unquote married to or whatever.
She did her time. Well, still doing her time as a reality star. I really kind of don't get it. I don't.
Nah, I don't get reality TV, but I particularly don't get that.
No,
she ended up marrying a guy from an NFL guy.
And that's a topic here. She's like separated from him for a little bit because she's gone to Vegas because she's trying to start a thing, and then she fights with her mom, and it gets all very contrived. Look, none of this is reality, people. This is scripted. Yes. I want people to understand that when you watch this, or even the Kardashians, this stuff is scripted. They don't just sort of say, well, let's see what happens in your life and we'll capture it.
Oh, no. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on the show before, but of course I worked in reality television for quite a while, and I worked in black reality television, which is even crazier than all the other. So I worked on DMX, The Soul of a Man. DMX was a fairly popular rapper in the early 2000s.
For 5 seconds.
Yeah,
which is longer than most of them these days.
He managed to pull off the thing. Plus, he would control substances. It was his problem. I worked on Lil' Kim. Lil' Kim had a reality show. I worked on it until she went to prison. She came back from prison because she went to prison for she would not. I tell you this about Lil' Kim. Lil' Kim went to prison because she wouldn't rat out.
Wow.
She would not. They put her on the stand. They told her you're gonna. She wouldn't rat. She wouldn't talk. Lil' Kim would not talk. Every gangster that they put on, actual gangster, the dudes on the stand, every one of them sang like a canary. Every one of the badass gangsters, brothers with the gold and all this kind of sang like a canary. Lil' Kim put it on. Lil' Kim, I ain't talking. I'm Lil' Kim, I ain't talking. Oh, no. Did not talk. Lil' Kim went to prison for 18 months. I ain't talking. Lil' Kim. Biggie taught her well. Came out of prison. Lil' Kim wasn't that little no more. Lil' Kim came out of prison weighing about 160. I'm like, whoa. Tried to start the TV show up again, the reality show. And we were like, Got mad at us because she said we made her look fat and quit the show. And I'm like, Lil' Kim, prison food made you look fat, sweetie. It wasn't us. I was on that show, the College Hill series, all perfectly insane, made up crap.
I have only once been exposed. I have scrupulously avoided watching anything Kardashian on television. I have only once been exposed to that circus, and it was when I was going to do some shopping for my aunt, my elderly aunt who's since passed. But I was going to do some shopping for my aunt at the Trader Joe's out in Agoura Hills, where she lived, and I pull in, and there are I mean, normally it's just a little parking lot at the Trader Joe's, and you pull in and you park. There was not a parking spot to be had. I was nearly hit by 2 cars as I was coming in, zipping around me, paparazzi piling everywhere. A van zips by, nearly sideswipes me. I think, what in blazes is going on? And there is Kardashian mom strolling along to go shopping, posing while she's strutting. And there are like 5 video cameras and at least 20 still photographers who are just completely swarming her. And and she's just kind of strutting it and enjoying the attention. And I'm thinking, I have no idea which one of these who's working for her show and who's just tagging along. I don't know. I don't care. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna grab some milk and bananas and get out of here because I don't want to be in any way attached to this nonsense. It was insane.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Anyway. That can only exist here. It can only exist here.
It's pure nuts.
Can I talk about this one?
Do it.
The 14-disc Blu-ray set, gigantic blue box, BBC, the complete Peter Capaldi years. Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I'm first of all ludicrous Doctor Who fan here. I go with the Doctor. I'm a Tom Baker guy. This is how far back I go. I go with the Doctor all the way back to the middle 70s. Tom Baker was the 4th Doctor around 75, 76, 74.
The first one who wasn't old.
The first one who wasn't old and exactly and had this verb. He was sort of like with the hair and the scarf. Anybody ever seen me in my scarves? That's me and Tom Baker. Big fan of the Peter Capaldi years, which is the year before the current season that's on now. So Peter Capaldi's Doctor, first of all, some absolutely brilliant writing. Brilliant. And you'll know Peter Capaldi. What was that wonderful series that British series that he was in? Oh, about the house. Anyway, he's a wonderful British actor who's in a number of absolutely hysterical. And look, I loved his companions in this series. I loved the writing in this particular series. The standalone episodes are absolutely extraordinary, as well as the sort of through line episodes that are always there. River Song, some of the actresses. I loved that Bill on the show, his last companion before that, as the series sort of came to an end, black woman who happened to be gay in the context of the series. Just but again, it's just this thing. And as you were watching the show over that last season, you only really came to understand that she was gay, sort of like by osmosis. Because she was always like jonesing on these hot chicks. But but the actual words never came out of anybody's mouth. And I love the way they played that. I'm a big fan of Peter Capaldi too. So this is a fantastic box. Big ass box, includes hours and hours of bonus features, deleted scenes from all of the various different episodes. So for every episode you've seen, there's more stuff here.
Fantastic.
And particularly as we work our way toward that last episode. Now, everyone knows now the new Doctor. The current doctor is a woman.
Yeah.
And as we work our way toward that, and he goes through his transformation,
Yeah.
he goes through, and we sort of, it's just the neatest thing in the world. There should have been a female doctor
A long time
a
ago.
long time.
And they've talked about
Yeah.
it. He's talked about it
Because
too.
there was
I've
no
been
reason for there not to be a female doctor.
Yeah.
The whole point of the doctor is that he
regenerates.
Yeah. And even in the context of the show, previously we knew that the doctor had been a woman because it was a thing that the other doctors would talk about. So it was just no reason for it. Anyway, they did it. It's an outstanding thing. I love the Peter Capaldi years.
Yeah.
Check it out before you move on to the Lady Doctor.
Fantastic stuff.
What do you want to do about this one?
Well, we should make mention of it,
and
then we're going to talk about it more on a future show.
Yeah, because we're going to have some interviews with some of the stars. So the series, Blu-ray and digital, is Into the Badlands. I have the complete second season here. Right,
and of course Sherman Augustus, who has been on this show in the past.
Yes, with John Bruno, he was in the film Virus. Sherman's a long-time working actor. He's one of the co-stars in this series now. Showed up in this season. Yep. Sherman is in the second season. His character is Nathaniel Moon.
Yeah,
fantastic character that he's playing. Now this is an interesting series. It's sort of an amalgamation of chopsaki, swords and sorcery.
It's basically the Road Warrior mixed with Hong Kong martial arts, set primarily in the UK with a very international cast.
Nick Frost shows up in the series. All kinds of people. It's a really neat series. We'll be starting up its third season, in a couple of months from the recording of this show.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking to soon. We're going to be talking to Sherman again, who has a very big role in the show.
Who is shooting in Ireland right now.
Literally just talked to him a little while ago about all kinds of stuff that we can't mention right now, as well as a couple of showrunners, Latoya, and we're going to talk to you about the show, the nature of the show, and what's going on, and some really neat things that we have going on.
It's really cool.
So we'll be doing that soon. Into the Badlands returns to AMC on April the 22nd.
Yes. Moving to foreign, I'm going to get into a little bit of foreign stuff right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Nowhere in Africa. Now, Nowhere in Africa, hang on, there we go. Moving things around the table. Yeah. Nowhere in Africa won Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars in 2001. Nowhere in Africa is a beautiful, wonderful, amazing film. Great score, incredible widescreen photography. Really an unbelievably deserving foreign language film winner. It's 2.5 hours long. It's incredibly moving. And I interviewed writer-director Caroline Link at the time. For a piece that I wrote. I think it was my German cinema piece for the LA Times, if memory serves. But it was a really fascinating interview with her, and it's just such an incredibly accomplished film. And what's really troubling me is that none of her subsequent films have been released here. I mean, you think you win an Oscar, and suddenly you get your movies released widely in the world. Not necessarily true. It didn't translate that way, but it's too bad. Kino and Zeitgeist have released this on Blu-ray and on DVD. The Blu-ray comes with interviews and deleted scenes and storyboard stuff and a making of documentary. But more than anything, the story is what gets you. And as much as I like a movie like Out of Africa, it's sort of really just scratching the surface of what this film does. This takes place in 1938. And it is the true story of a Jewish family who flees what is certain to be eventually becomes the Holocaust to live on a farm in Kenya. And this actually happened, and there were quite a lot of Jewish families that were better off and had the means to do this, who relocated to elsewhere in the world when it was clear that things were going to go south very, very quickly in Germany. And it is just such an absolutely fascinating story. Because it's not just about this family. It is about Kenya. It is about the people that they live with. It is about what's happening in Kenya while the rest of the world is disintegrating, and how all of these people manage to live together, and where it's in terms of the look at culture and humanity and people from different countries. It's really just a fascinating film, and I can't recommend it highly enough. From Kino Lorber and Zeitgeist, the Oscar-winning Nowhere in Africa by Caroline Link. Get it on Blu-ray. It is widescreen, so beautiful. One of the most classically beautiful films I've seen in so long. Absolutely fantastic. Some other foreign language films that are worth recommending from the Dominican Republic, Woodpeckers,
Ah, yeah.
which was their submission for the Oscars. It did not get nominated. It's still a very, very good film. And this also played Sundance in the World Cinema section at Sundance. This all takes place in a Dominican prison, and it's a really, really tough film. It deals with the subject. When it says woodpeckers is a word that describes the way that sign language is used to communicate between male and female inmates, so that the authorities, the prison guards and officials, don't know what you are saying.
Yeah.
So it's like baseball signing, right?
Yeah.
It's
a Morse code of sorts.
Morse code of sorts, and it is about the politics of how to survive in prison, both men and women. It's a really, really powerful, gripping film. It's really very accomplished. It bodes incredibly well for the Dominican film industry, which is barely a film industry. The director, Jose Maria Cabral, is quite accomplished, and I really, really look forward to seeing more come out of this industry. So Dominican Republic is making some interesting movies, at least in this one case. Rift is one of those icy cold Scandinavian thriller movies that come out every so often. What was the one that Chris Nolan remade? Swedish film.
Yeah,
with Stellan Skarsgård starred in the original one.
Oh yeah, it's out of my head right now.
Drawing
I'll
a blank
think of
on
it.
Anyway, this is basically like an LGBT film gone wrong, set in Iceland. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the only way I can put this. This is from Breaking Glass Pictures. It's very, very accomplished, but Icelandic cinema is, of course, a thing unto itself, and Scandinavian cinema is a thing unto itself. And when Icelandic cinema, and anyway, it's unlike most LGBT films about male relationships. This isn't about finding yourself or about the romance or the love necessarily. This is a straight up thriller, and it's about a relationship gone wrong, and how wrong it goes, which can be pretty wrong. This played Outfest in Los Angeles, but it also played Fantastic Fest.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a crossover film. It has mainstream aspect to it, and again, it's very stylish and very, very cool. Let's see what else here. I'll make mention of these three. Court by Chaitanya Tamhane. This is also from Kino Lorber and Zeitgeist. This film is a popular film apparently for Sean Baker, who directed and wrote The Florida Project, because he is quoted with a pull quote in this, who calls it one of the strongest debuts ever, my favorite film of 2014. That was about the time that he made Tangerine. This did really, really well internationally with a lot of festivals. It is an Indian film in a number of Indian languages. I'm not going to call it a Bollywood film because it kind of crosses over between a bunch of Indian film industries. And it basically is just a study of all of the caste issues that are tearing India apart to this day, which they've done a really good job minimizing and addressing over the generations, but it's so ancient and so rooted, and it still is a real problem in the country. So this is effectively a look at that. And also quoted on the box is Joshua Oppenheimer, who did The Act of Killing, who loves it for many of the same reasons apparently. So the movie is called Court, and it's pretty powerful. From Christophe Ali and Nicolas Bonellari is The Assistant, starring French legend Nathalie Baye, along with Malik Zidi. I am a huge Nathalie Baye fan. The only thing that upsets me about this, which is from Distrib Films, who acquires and releases a lot of foreign language stuff, and the home video license here is with Icarus. It's not on Blu-ray, and this really should be on Blu-ray. It's a beautifully shot film. It's a really cool kind of Hitchcockian thriller with that deals with one of those. How to even describe this? So there's a death. There's a death. Let's see. Okay, Malik Zedi is responsible for someone's death, and the mother of the person who dies is played by Natalie Bai, and it is. This is the story about how that death affects these two people on a trajectory that goes for many, many years. That's all I'll tell you about it. It is absolutely worth seeing. It is really well written. It is really, really well shot. It's really a superb film in every conceivable way. And I believe it may have screened here at Cocoa. If it didn't, it should have. The Assistant by Christophe Ali and Nicolas Bonlaury, starring Natalie Bai and Malik Zedi. Really a cool movie. And let's see, I'll leave these others until next week. The last one here I'll mention is Frederic Mermouz's Mocha, which is released by Film Movement. This also has Natalie Bai in it. It is also about a mother and a son and an accident and trying to resolve everything to do with that. Natalie Bai, in this case, is not the mother. Emmanuelle DeVos is the mother, but it is an equally cool thriller by a novel from a novel by the same author as Sarah's Key, which is a very different film. Sarah's Key is more, period and all that. But this is very cool. Also has a short film, Le Créneau, by the same director, Frederic Mermouz, also with Emmanuelle DeVos, and a really cool thriller.
Yeah, okay. Can I knock off a couple of these
by all means.
classics here? Warner Archive collection. 2 films, Ross Macdonald adaptations. I was a big fan of Ross Macdonald, those great detective novels. The first detective that Paul Newman ever played was Harper in 1966. I love these films. It's kind of a neat movie that it has Paul Newman playing opposite Janet Leigh, who plays his wife in the film. Right, he's this detective. He has to go. Lauren Bacall has a situation. Her husband's been kidnapped. You have to get Harper to go get him.
Yeah.
But most of the movie is really about Harper and Janet Leigh and all that kind of business. Right. This is 1966 film. Neat movie. I think the title sequence was done by the great Saul Bass. I'm almost certain of it.
Yeah.
Right. So Paul Newman's first outing as a detective, Lou Harper, adaptation of Ross Macdonald. Fast forward to I believe this is 1975. He's playing Harper again, this time in The Drowning Pool.
Sweet. That's a great film.
A great film, neat film. This time opposite Joanne, his wife in the film, right? It's all set in New Orleans. And interestingly, Melanie Griffith, very young Melanie Griffith, obviously, is in the film playing Joanne's daughter. Melanie, of course, being the daughter of Janet Leigh, who he played Harper opposite in 1966. Interesting little through line there.
Cool.
Cool. As far as anyway, and The Drowning Pool is a pretty neat movie. Special features, a vignette. Harper Days are here again. You don't see. They don't make movies like this as movies anymore. These guys now are on. Liev Schreiber plays this guy.
I know,
on television
on Showtime,
yeah.
Basically, yeah. Got some stuff here from the opposite ends of the spectrum. Mill Creek on the bargain end and Criterion on the high end. Let me give you the Mill Creek stuff first. We got a Mill Creek 9 Lives movie collection, all on Blu-ray. 9 films. Let me repeat that. 9 films on Blu-ray. 9 films on Blu-ray, including SWAT, which that shows you how far that film has fallen. Universal Soldier, The Return, Vertical Limit, Last Action Hero, which I really love.
Bridget's in The Last Action Hero.
Is she really?
Bridget's in The Last Action Hero.
Really?
Yeah, my wife is in The Last Action Hero.
We've got to watch that again. Yeah. I love Last Action Hero. I did the junket
for that. It's you know what? It flopped.
I know it did. It tanked hard.
But it's an absolutely hysterical film that's so clever and so inside. It's about the movie industry and what goes on with Arnold Schwarzenegger playing.
It's like Keaton's Sherlock Jr. elevated to an action film, self-reflexive thing with Schwarzenegger playing himself, basically.
Yeah.
And at one point when he says, do you know how much pain you've caused me? I just thought, wow, that's pretty honest. This also has Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer playing, a blind samurai white guy. But here's the reason to get that. White Line Fever, which is an old, grindhouse truck movie. But here's the reason to get this. Forget about Last Action Hero, which is really good, or SWAT, which isn't terrible. You get this for Silent Rage.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you get this. Chuck Norris in Silent Rage is one of the funniest times I have ever had in a movie theater. I saw this at a preview, and everyone was howling. This is about a guy who looks like Mick Jagger, who goes on a rampage and
Because he's shot up with some sort of drug. It's
Yeah,
some
killed
sort of scientific crap goes
he's
on.
killed a lot of people,
Yeah.
and Chuck Norris is the sheriff who shows up in his 10-gallon hat and blows this guy away, and he has to shoot him a few times. And then this guy goes into the morgue where there's some mad scientist who says, "Ooh, the perfect experiment. I'll just shoot you up with serum," which makes him invincible.
Yes.
He is unkillable at this point. And now he goes, and basically the rest of the movie is just Chuck Norris desperately trying to figure out how to kill this guy because nothing works. No bullet.
He runs over the guy with a Bronco.
He runs over him with a car. You set him on fire. Nothing you do to this guy, he will not die. So it's just Chuck desperately trying to figure out, how do you kill this guy? It's hysterical. It's a stone cold riot.
I always thought there was going to be a sequel.
Well, it sets it up for it,
For a
but
sequel,
it just
that
tanked.
last thing, yeah.
And then we get a couple of from Mill Creek Hammer Films double features: Maniac and Die Die Darling on one, and Scream of Fear and Never Take Candy from a Stranger on the other. These are really kind of low-level Hammer films. Hammer made more movies than anybody can even possibly count. These are both Blu-rays. They are strictly for Hammer purists, I would say. There's some interesting filmmaking in these. Never Take Candy from a Stranger has some really interesting widescreen photography. And Die Die Darling is kind of funny in a silly way. Stephanie Powers and Donald Sutherland are really camping it up. Tallulah Bankhead is very, very funny. But on balance, you really want to kind of reserve these if you're a Hammer purist, a Hammer completist. And then on the Criterion end of things, we have an amazing week of Criterion. The first one is the one that is kind of least known, actually. Bertolt Brecht wrote a play called Baal, based on the biblical god of the Canaanites. Baal, not like soccer ball.
Yeah.
It's like the god Baal.
Is that Fassbinder film?
Fassbinder acts in it.
He plays that character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fassbinder plays Baal, which is interesting casting. The play is Brechtian, and then the director is Volker Schlondorf, who of course did the Tin Drum and many other great films.
A version of that Margaret Atwood did, the Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, Handmaid's Tale.
He did the film version with Duvall and all those people. Yeah.
So this is a new 2K digital restoration of the 1970 film, which is very much part of the new German cinema movement, of which Schlondorf and Wim Wenders and Fassbinder, they were all a part of it. They all signed the Oberhausen Manifesto. So anyway, this is a really kind of a historic film in many regards, and it's got the Schlondorf approved, director approved label on it. Comes with some really interesting extras, conversation between Ethan Hawke and playwright Jonathan Sherman about the play and this adaptation, which is really interesting. There's a new interview with Margareta von Trotta, who is another figure of the new German cinema, who also acts in this.
The lost honor of Katharina Blum.
Yes, exactly. Right. So this is a really really interesting movie, and very much part of the new German cinema. The other two you will know absolutely right out of the gate. The Age of Innocence, Martin Scorsese's beautiful, almost too beautiful 1993 film. There were a lot of beautiful movies in 93. That was the year, of course, of Schindler's List and The Remains of the Day.
And a lot of those films, well, I was just about to say that that sort of Merchant Ivory thing had sort of infested everything. Insinuated itself into everything. Yeah. And even Scorsese doing that kind of stuff, so it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous movie, and Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder, Michelle Pfeiffer. It's just the world of Edith Wharton, the turn of the century world, New York, and the manners and all that. Yeah. It's got one of those legendary Scorsese, single shot tracking shots in it. It's just gorgeous stuff. Dante Ferretti. Scorsese, Gabriella Pascucci, they're all interviewed here. Lots of great stuff.
He was working outside of what had become known as his genre. Because we'd been the Goodfellas, we'd been the obviously all that kind of stuff. So it was a shift for him when he made that movie.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna wrap out today with The Passion of Joan of Arc, the Carl Theodor Dreyer silent film from 1928.
Oh, the close-ups, the close-ups.
It's just one of the most beautiful films ever made. And this, of course, had shots in in at least one of the montages on the Academy Awards recently. This is just an unbelievably great movie. I didn't love it as much when I saw it in school, partly because you're seeing it in school and there are shots of people, tops of people's heads and sides of their faces, and it's some very avant-garde.
It influenced my photography quite a lot as I was growing up.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. But when you get a little older, you look back on this and you realize that nobody did close-ups like this in the silent era. No. I mean, they get right up into her face, and it's jarring. I mean, it really changed a lot. Renee Falconetti is the actress who wound up basically being known for this performance for her entire career. She really didn't do anything else of note. But you see the texture of her skin, you see the tears in her eyes, the moist eyes. It's what you see here from a photographic standpoint revolutionized cinema.
Yeah, considering what the new technology, the lighting, and when you look at it, oddly, 1928. This film. It is insanely contemporary.
Amazingly so.
When you watch it, you would just not have any idea. Even her with the haircut and in her face, she has a contemporary face. It's quite beautiful.
And what Dreyer does visually with the camera is, he broke all kinds of rules, and it really still stands as the film for which he will forever be known. Tons and tons of extras here. You get 3 scores, which is wonderful because all 3 scores are amazing. The one most commonly known is Richard Einhorn's Voices of Light, which is one of the most recent ones. There is still a 4th score, which you can get on CD, which is not included here, which is I think a Danish score. But nonetheless, you get the Voices of Light, you get one by Will Gregory and Adrian Utley, and then you also get the one by Mi Yanashita. They're all fantastic. Voices of Light, of course, is obviously the most famous. There's a new conversation between Gregory and Utley, and an interview from 1995 with the daughter of Renee Falconetti. So this is just wonderful in every conceivable way, and if you are a movie fan of any kind, you have to have this. So that is it. We are done for this week, and we will see you guys next week as we move into the spring.